Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Valicia Dunbar, also known as Dr. V, and I am the Walker's Legacy City Director for Jacksonville, Florida. I am delighted to serve as your moderator for this session entitled COVID-19 Thrive, Workplace Wellness Solutions with Lequita Brooks. Lequita Brooks is the founder and CEO of TherapyTopia here in Jacksonville, a social enterprise specializing in workplace mental wellness solutions and innovative outplacement mental wellness services, and a fusion of outplacement services and employee assistance programs, also known as EAP. She holds a Master of Social Work from Florida State University and is a licensed clinical social worker working with employee assistance programs and in hospice care, as well as working for at least a decade as the Veterans Affairs Healthcare for the Homeless program. She's been featured on ABC's First Coast News, Black Enterprise Magazine, and Jacksonville's Your Health. Her life and therapy practice mantra are be human, get help, and live well. Welcome, everyone. Ms. Lequita Brooks, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Dr. V.
Lequita, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came into the field of mental health.
Yes, so naturally, I am just really great at navigating, problem solving, getting things done. So naturally, I was like, you know what, I need to go back to school to get my master's in social work. Plus, at that time, my daughter was 3 years old. I was a mom that co-parented. And I wanted to do something that gave me that freedom and flexibility that I desired. So social work was it.
And how long have you've been working as a mental health provider for more than a decade, correct?
Yes.
How did you fall into this concept of TherapyTopia and the services that you provide currently?
You know, that was a great question, Dr. V. So with Dr. V, so I'll just give you all a little context on Dr. V and I. So with maybe some of the moderators and speakers, they don't know each other. Dr. V and I connected years ago prior to her even relocating into Beaver Street Enterprise Center. And Dr. V was my coach. And from her coaching services at the Center for Confidence, there was this, well, it still is, an accountability group where we actually get together, hold each other accountable. And I know from having a business for at least 7 years, you have a business name that doesn't say what you do, it's really hard to articulate. And I'm an introvert. You might not think so, but I am. So I really was frustrated with constantly telling everyone what is LCN. So if going to the Center for Confidence's accountability group, we started brainstorming some names, and I came up with TherapyTopia was one of the ones that we voted on. And then the group was like, you know what, TherapyTopia has a ring. So that's how it, came all about, with connecting with other like-minded individuals who have the same thing in common, and that's to build a business and build a legacy.
Awesome. So when you built TherapyTopia also, you talked a lot about mental health and wellness for women, primarily addressing issues of mental health in the workplace. And that today, we're all out working outside of the workplace and working in our own spaces today, and the workplace is shifting. So we still have the same degree of stress, we still have the same degree of life challenges, but the context is different. So tell us about your concept behind creating outplacement mental wellness services.
And so, like you mentioned, in today's climate, people need mental health along with career coaching. So typically in the corporate world, I would say at least mid-sized companies and higher, and maybe even some small companies, they offer employee assistance programs, which are for employees that are currently at the company to get free short-term counseling. That's something that the company pays for. So if your company has EAP, or if you're like, I don't even know if my company has it, definitely check with your HR, see if your company has EAP. I would say 98% of the time it is completely confidential. I know with my EAP clients, everything is confidential because I never report the information back to the company. And I can't guarantee that, but definitely if you're dealing with life and you are still employed and you need to talk to someone in confidence that will not provide a diagnosis and is free and is paid for by your company, check out your EAP. So that's one service that's paid for through the company. The other service is outplacement services, which is for individuals that have been laid off. The company pays for it, but it mainly deals with career, resume writing, and things of that sort. So it's really just career. But right now, everyone in some capacity is dealing with life. So if you're dealing with life and now compounded with unemployment, say you don't have a savings, or even if you do have a savings and you know the job market is going to be competitive, to me, it only makes sense to innovate and be creative and develop a totally new program that has never been provided, which is outplacement mental wellness services that combines both outplacement and EAP.
I love that idea. So what are some of the things that you're seeing now? What are people talking about? What's stressing us out? I can give you my list, but I'm curious to know, what are some of the main issues that are coming up now that people are trying to deal with and address?
Well, I think that was kind of a broad question. And since we're focused in on people that are laid off, I'm going to start with their mentality. So I do a speech called the why mentality. There are individuals that I've spoken with that have been laid off, and their immediate thought, their immediate mindset is, oh my goodness, I need to hurry up and find me another 9-to-5 job. And a 9-to-5 job is amazing. As you've heard, I work for the VA, I've worked in hospice, and those are great. But as you know, in this climate, it's a strong chance it is going to take you longer than what you anticipate to get employment. So the mindset needs to be, how can I generate legal income today? Let's tap into, what are you good at? What are your skill sets? What are your strengths? And what can you actually do to start generating money? Yes, it might not be $5,000 or $10,000 today, but it is something, and it's going to keep you going. And even with unemployment, make sure you check on the laws and rules in your particular city or state. I was on unemployment probably at least, 10 or 13 years ago. And one of the things I did during my time of being unemployed, I still worked as a substitute teacher, and I received unemployment. Now, I know substituting is not available now, but there are things you can do now and still earn income while you're getting unemployment if the income is underneath the allocated amount. So it's just something to think about. So you'll have time to kind of build. So don't fret or don't freak out and say, well, no, I don't want to work at all, or do any type of, as some will call it, a side hustle contract work through Upwork or Fiverr. No, start like right now, like while we're on this webinar, start right now and really identify those things you can do, because you can still work on the 9-to-5, but also work on generating money now.
So the first thing they should do after initially suffering a job loss is just to jump right back into it. Some of us would prefer to pause, take a mental break, reset, but you're recommending, don't let that linger for too long. Just jump right back into it. Keep the momentum going is what you're saying. I like that idea. So once we keep that momentum going and we start getting into the game or start sending out information and the depression comes on, or the self-doubt and the questioning comes on, what are some things that you recommend to sort of help us to keep our energy up, our spirit up, our anxiety low, to get us through the process? Because it may take a while.
Yes, it definitely will. And it goes back to the why mentality. And what that means is, what is your why? Why do you do what you do? So as I'm going through the 3 steps of the why mentality, I'll also give examples of my life and how I apply these concepts. And then make sure you engage with us in the chat. If you have questions, we're here to help. And also, if you're looking through Facebook, add them in the comments, and maybe someone might be able to see the comments. So first, your why. For me, my why is my 15-year-old daughter. It is important for her to have access to the things that she needs, her wants. It's important for her to take dance when she took dance. It was important when she decided to venture into entrepreneurship that I had the resources for her to be able to do the things that she desires to do and for her to have exposure. So my why is my 15-year-old daughter. Number 2 is your values. What's important to you? what are those underlying things? So for me, going back to school when my daughter was 4 years old, I went to school to be a social worker because one, I'm good at navigating, but two, I needed freedom and flexibility. I needed to be able to be the homeroom mom, go on field trips. And even I would say during this season of COVID-19, this was the best thing for my daughter and I. Because of me having financial stability, and we can talk more about grants and other things later on, but because of me having that financial stability, I was able to be at home and just really be engaged with my daughter. And this is the first time she's had straight A's, okay, since elementary school. And Dr. V was my coach when we were going through a turbulent time. So
I remember.
Yes, everything. So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
and you know, in COVID, yes, it is unfortunate and it's sad, but I would just say we continuously hear about how everyone is struggling in COVID-19. No, some of us are thriving, we are rocking it, we are being creative, and we're really tapping into our why. And as number 3 is your strategy. And I kind of talked about this. When my daughter was like 4 years old, I was at a point where I had 10 different entrepreneurial things. I sold clothes, I did loan closings, I flipped cars. Like I did a variety of things because once again, for my values, it's important to have that flexibility. But then I got to a point where I'm like, oh my goodness, I have 10 different entrepreneurial gigs, AKA some might call them hustles. I want to do something that's purposeful and I can still generate what I need to do. So at that point, I filed for bankruptcy, let my house go. Back then, I did a foreclosure in 2008. And then I said, you know what? My baby and I, me and my 4-year-old, we packed up and we moved away from family, almost, 3 hours away for me to go back to school full time. So I'm not saying that's a strategy you need to use, but what I am saying is think about what you want to accomplish, your particular outcome, and then from that, create a plan in order to accomplish it. For me, it was just education, because to be a social worker and a clinical social worker, you needed to have a degree. So those are the 3 things. So hopefully that can help you.
Know your why. And number 2?
Your values.
Your value. And number 3, your strategy.
Your strategy. Yes, that is
wonderful.
The why mentality.
I'm going to type that into the chat for takeaways. Okay. So you touched on being a mom. And when it comes to being a mom, there are extra challenges. And for all the mompreneurs out there, I'm sure they can appreciate just some tips or some ideas on how do you manage it and, and thrive through that as well. And being a mom, because that is your priority, at the end of the day, as you said, that's number 1. But with being a mom comes, a lot of management, self-management, emotional management. How do you work through that?
I will say, I think I have a competitive edge just because naturally as a person since middle school, I've always been extremely proactive. I was that kid that talked to my parents about, hey, I need a tutor. Hey, I need, you to pay for the SAT. Hey, I need for you to pay for the ACT. Whatever I needed, I kind of got it there. So I would say for me personally, it's just something that I naturally do. Now, for those who are on the opposite end of the spectrum, and make sure, just as a side note, take career assessments. I know when I went through coaching with Dr. V, I did the Gallup's strengths assessment. Also, I did the Eric Thomas's DISC assessment, and it really helped me do a deep dive into my value and also those things that I'm great at. So that's just a side note for those who aren't really sure. So some of the simple things you can do is, and I know I've said this quite a few times, but I am a firm believer. There are going to be days we feel anxious. There are going to be days we feel depressed. But if we go back into our why, whether we take 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, and really think about, am I living the life that I really want to live? And if the answer is no, you can spend time to kind of cope, go through the process you need to go through. But while you're going through your process and you're just going through the process, but not being proactive with it, you're not progressing. So in a sense, you need that time to be depressed and anxious, but at some point you have to make a decision. And I'm not saying it's an easy decision. No, it is a very hard decision to make. But you also know if you don't make a decision or if you don't do anything, nothing will change and you will continue to be in this same vicious cycle. And I'm quite sure that, you know, none of us want to just get up, go to a job, pay bills, and do the same thing every day. I know I personally don't.
Very true. You mentioned assessments, and in the field of coaching, one of the most valuable tools that I want to put out there for everyone is to understand what their personality type is, why they do the things they do, why do they overthink, why are they slow to make decisions, why are they reactive and impulsive. A lot of our behaviors are predictable behaviors, and just understanding why we do the things that we do is a relief. It's a way to just get a lot of anxiety off of your chest, just knowing that it's not you, it's just how you're built, and that there are tools and skills to work around it. So that's one of the most effective workplace resources and wellness resources just for our mental health and stress that we can have. I did not know that I was a strong introvert. And being a strong introvert, you shy away from people. You really don't want to be around people that much. You have to build up your energy because you get exhausted with, you absorb a lot of energy from other people. And some people are the opposite. Some people are extroverts, and so they bring the energy to the room. And I had to understand that when you're working in sales and when you're working in certain jobs and career fields, you have to push through it, and you have to learn skills that make you appear to be that open, proactive, energetic employee, so that you can get to the next level, so that you can get your job. Companies want people with energy, sales-related companies want people with energy. Some of them don't. So I just wanted to throw that tip out there. So definitely wellness and just understanding yourself in the workplace and how you engage and interact with people is an important and valuable knowledge base to have. So Lequita, we're talking about wellness, and you've come up with this program called COVID-19 Thrive. I love the way that sounds. I'm excited just to hear about it. So tell us a bit about what that is, and how it can benefit and work for us.
The COVID-19 Thrive campaign was birthed from 23 million Americans being unemployed. So what COVID-19 Thrive is, with TherapyTopia, what we're doing is we're working with companies and philanthropists to attain sponsorships, which means funding, so then we can help 1 million Americans that were laid off as a result with COVID-19 to attain free outplacement mental wellness services, which is mental health and career coaching, and the services will be offered virtually. And the unique thing about COVID-19 Thrive is TherapyTopia, we are a social enterprise. So for me, it's not just about generating income. With every sponsorship that we receive, 3 Americans will be helped. The person that was laid off, a therapist that's licensed will be hired to render the services, and also a career counseling individual will also be contracted to provide services. So each laid off American will have 2 support people along with a plan, assessments, follow-up services. And with COVID-19 Thrive, we need companies to sponsor their employees that were laid off. We also need philanthropists who have an excess of disposable income to sponsor. And we also have a team of volunteers that's helping us make this happen. So it's all about helping Americans that were laid off get back into the workforce. Because at this point, with 23 million Americans being unemployed, and a lot of companies are still laying off individuals, and even once the economy opens back up, it's a strong possibility they will not be rehired, because now they're getting more work done with less people.
That's amazing. It's so true. So tell us about the connection again, because it didn't resonate with me before, and this is the first time I've really thought about career counseling career coaching, career coaching, and the critical link to mental health coaching. We normally see those as two separate, fully separate components. But what I think you're saying is in times of stress, when the environment is fully stressed and people are stressed, that you have to shift and integrate those two?
Yes, that is what I'm saying. Especially, go ahead.
Well, explain that a little bit more. How did you conceive of that idea? Did it come out of your clients and what they were expressing from your experiences with people in the field? How did you come about, getting that connection and really pushing it out there as something that's a viable option for people to have?
I'm first a human being. So before I'm an African-American woman, mom, etc., I'm a human being. And because of my natural skill set, for me, I've rocked this. And I'm an introvert. This has been amazing. I've been extremely creative, and I've been in my home with my daughter, and we're both just kicking butt. And because of that, and I think about my various employee assistance program clients and some of the things that they had concerns with, or even individuals that I've talked with that are laid off, everyone is dealing with the mental issue. So for me, naturally, it's like, you might not have a mental illness, as someone said earlier, but we're all dealing with something. When you really look at the 8 domains of wellness, when it comes to our physical, our environmental, intellectual, emotional, mental, all those different areas of our lives, we're all impacted in some way. So one of those 8 domains of wellness is being impacted. For some, it could be finances. For others, it could be, I've been binge eating on junk food and all the snacks are gone in week 1. So all of us, in some way within those 8 domains of wellness, we've been impacted. So because of that, when I say, we use the term mental wellness. And the reason we say mental wellness is because it's not necessarily mental health per se. It's literally just your wellness in all these different areas. And then the career piece is, we're going to help you with the resume. And we're going to help you with, things related to a career. But we also want to change your mentality about the workforce, because that's number one. Because I had someone and surprisingly, I've had people to offer to volunteer that are unemployed to try to help this movement. And the lady said she has like 20 years in HR. And she says, Lequita, I never thought about seeing how I can use my HR skills to do contract work in some capacity. And I was like, yeah, so for me personally, I just see the vision. I see that it's a need, because people's mindsets and mentality need to change about how you're going to re-engage in the workforce when it's time to re-engage. So that's why I guess for me, it just, I don't know, just a light bulb. It could be, a higher being. It just made sense to me. And we combine outplacement, because everyone know what outplacement is, and we know what mental wellness is. So that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, I love that. Just being creative, thinking outside of the box, and again, keeping your momentum up. You didn't stop. You kept moving forward, and you kept coming up with creative ideas every day. And now you're testing an awesome idea. So congratulations on that. Now tell me about, you said some people need to sort of reset in the skills category, how they go about job searching, how they go about presenting themselves. So talk to me about some of the common things that individuals do wrong when they're seeking employment.
Number 1 is doing a resume blast. Okay, so you can't do a resume blast like you do email blasts. It's just not going to work. Because for those of you who've been in the workforce for a long time, you might not realize that the recruiting process is typically used within an applicant tracking system. So in human terms, it means a real person might not ever see your resume if you don't have the correct keywords. So I'll just use social work as an example. I'm a very practical person, so I want to put it in real life terms. So as a social worker, you have keywords like psychosocials, and initial assessments, plans, but the verbiage for my VA resume is going to talk about working with veterans and working with homeless veterans. My resume for working with hospice is going to be about working with the elderly and working with their loved ones and family members. So for each resume, it has to be tweaked so you can at least get past step one. And step one is to get past the applicant tracking system. So what I recommend is, I literally, in the past, when I did look for jobs, when I applied for my VA job, I took all of the entire job description for the VA and then applied it to my experience that I had with hospice. And then from that, I developed my resume. It's going to take you time. It's going to be frustrating, but I guarantee your callback rate will increase if you have a customized resume for each job, or at least have those keywords in your resume. So that's number one. And I'll give a second one real quick: your social media. We all Google each other, good, bad, indifferent. That's what we do. And I'm not saying it's right, but it's a strong possibility your next employer, if you make it past the applicant tracking system, they are going to Google you. And I'm not saying that it's right, but you might not get an opportunity to interview if your social media looks a little questionable, depending on what type of role you're trying to go into.
I will say that when I was working for an agency in DC, that we did not hire a young man because of his social media feed, which was, in a way, sort of disrespectful towards women. I'll just say that generally, just had a lot of content up there about women. And I didn't think that was fair. They didn't even offer him an interview. I thought he could have, at least give a person an opportunity to explain themselves, but they weren't interested. It was just an amazing shift that social media has become that powerful. So I can definitely appreciate that. Thinking about social media, because everyone has a cell phone now, and we're so socially and emotionally connected to social media content. And I'm moving into, what's going on, with the latest, police situation. So, I was working yesterday on a deadline, and a friend called and wanted to talk about that. And what I realized was, because I was on a deadline, I was trying to insulate myself from it. And if I was in the workplace and had to go to work, it would have been a difficult transition. And I remember when I was working with the Army, they wore that sort of stuff on their sleeve. It was the conversation first thing in the morning. When it comes to social media and people want to pull you in, do you have any advice or tips on how do you separate those two? It's just becoming more and more difficult, and Facebook is no longer really allowing us to do the fake names, or maybe they are and I just haven't figured it out yet. But I'm just, my my mother-in-law does it. She has about 6 profiles, and she has the bizarre, all different personalities coming out. So do you have any advice on that? Should we set up a separate Facebook page just for, like most of us have now, for our brand and for our business? And I've seen some people integrate their personal Facebook page with their business. What do you recommend? And how do you energy, that environmental and social energy separate? It's just very difficult to do, and it affects your work.
So I am going to respond to that, but while I'm doing that, Dr. V, can you check in the chat box just to see if we have any questions? Because I saw a few things pop up, but I'm not sure if they were questions. So in regards to managing traumatic experiences or things that occur outside of work, and then once you actually get to work and people want to talk about it, you can just respectfully just say, I understand that this is a tough time for everyone, but I would prefer not to talk about it. And I know that sounds very simplistic, but let's go back to the first thing we talked about, the why mentality. Why are you at work? Okay, so if you're at work because you know that you need your job for your financial security, no matter how you feel, you go to work and you put your game face on, be politically correct, and yet it is tough. And this is where I'm going to transition just a little bit, just to tell you that you need financial stability and you need financial security and you need multiple streams of income. So then when incidents like this happen and you feel extremely upset because now you have to go back into the workplace and you have to be subjected to different things and you have to code switch and you have to do other things, if for no other reason than what happened the other day, or even with COVID-19, the time is now. Even if you don't have the even if you feel depressed, the time is now for you to figure out how you're going to generate some income so then you do not have to be subjected to it. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about me right now for you to take tools and strategies from my own personal life. So a few years ago when I was going through coaching with Dr. V, my daughter was having a tough time. So then I actually pulled her out of school and put her in homeschool. And remember, I told you that I'm a mom that is single, that co-parents, and I have no additional income coming into my house. And at that time, I worked at the Department of Veterans Affairs. And some would say that's a good government job, great benefits, nice salary, very cushy. But for me, my why was more important. My daughter was more important. And I quit my federal job to be home with my daughter and homeschool her without having any extra income. But why could I do that? Because I used my property maybe the previous year and I had at least a year's of savings. So I was like, you know what? I'm quitting my job. I'm going to homeschool my daughter and I have a year's worth of money saved that I can live off in the event that I don't work for the next year. So that's number one. You need to get your money right. You need to make sure you have a savings because you're thinking about your why and you're thinking about your future. From that, interestingly, that same year when I left my job at the VA, and I did have, my mom said to me, she said, "Are you sure, Keita?" I said, "Yes, Mom, I'm not going to need any help from you or my grandparents. I have enough money for a year." But that same year, a grant was posted that fit me. It was a grant doing the same thing that I do now. And because of my relationship with Dr. V and working with her through coaching and just us working on a variety of projects together, Dr. V and I, we partnered on a VA grant for us to help veterans with life skills. So remember, I told you I worked for the VA, left the VA for my daughter, and I turned right back around in the same year and was awarded a VA grant with Dr. V to do the same thing I did before. And now I have the freedom and flexibility and financial stability. Not where I'm at completely, but definitely in a very good space. So I could be creative and think about outplacement mental wellness services now and think about how I can help others because now I'm overflowing. So really think about that and make sure you have a champion on your team.
One thing that you said at that time, which is relevant for everyone, is that you have to invest in yourself. You have to start investing in yourself and you have to start investing in your business. And somewhere at that point, that is when you realize that is what you needed to do and you had to make that shift. And that's a hard decision to make for a lot of people. So making that decision, investing in yourself and putting together that strategy, the number 3 that you were talking about, is definitely a way to stay out of that stress mode because financials will always put you in stress mode. Mm-hmm. Another thing I wanted to mention was just the wellness days. When I was working, first, entered the workforce and, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad had passed away. And so I wanted to just make sure I did right by everybody. I was trying to take care of everybody and help everybody. And I didn't understand this concept of sick leave. And I rarely, I just remember it was just a habit. If you were sick, you still go to work. I don't know if people still do this, but it was the worst thing I could do to myself. I would go to work sick. I had terrible, like every month, terrible cramps, but I still show up to work, just feeling like I'm in a coma. And I realized talking to a roommate who had no problem taking her sick leave, she would add them to her vacation days. So I have so many vacation days plus so many sick days, I get this many days off. And at that point, I realized, you know what? It's about what you always call and what we talk about now, self-care. That is my wellness day. If I'm going into work stress and there's too much on my plate, we've got to start to treat ourselves better and take those days that are given and use them for our own protection and well-being. Use those sick days. Use every single one of them. They're yours. They are part of your package. They're part of your benefit package. Use every single one of them. If you have a headache, if you're not feeling well, if you have family, friends not feeling well, use it. It has, it's part of, the mental wellness package and the mental wellness needs that you have every day when things come up. So definitely take those days off. I want to ask you about, I was working with a friend at Johns Hopkins who's since retired, and HR teams. So I have a love-hate relationship with HR teams. I'm going to tell you that. Because, I feel like as if they can do more. And what startled me was that he was telling me about, he retired last year, but he had been with the federal government, one of those 30 plus year people working in HR. And before he left, he was an ombudsman for a project on African-American women who were federal employees and their mental health. And he said something that was just shocking. He said that within the past maybe year or two, there were about 10 or so women who before they retired had heart attacks and died. African-American women. He said they were all African-American women. And that reminds me of, this stress and just self trauma that we put on ourselves that would make us work that hard to enter these workplaces every single day. And so his point was, we already come as African-American women, we already come to the workplace with, he called it something, with a higher level of stress. Just coming to work is stressful because we have to, like you say, put on that game face. That is stress. That is added on stress that we don't want. So I'm curious to know, other than taking those days off, is there something out there that you see that can help to alleviate this going to work under stress, under duress, from family, home environment, but then having to put in that coping, put on that coping hat and make it through your day at work? What is your thought on that? What can we do about that? How can we improve that? We shouldn't be dying of heart attacks after 30 years of suffering.
Which is true. I will say that we have the power of control. So we make a decision, right, to go to a workplace for 30 years that stresses us out because of the lifestyle that we live, and we need the money that this company is providing for us, right? So I will give some strategies, but I first want to say it's on us. It's on me. It's on you. It's on us. And not saying that it is right for corporations to treat us the way they treat us. It's not right. We have to code switch. It's not right that we have to put on our game face. It's not right we have to deal with all of these different stressors compounded with being Black. No, it is not right. But guess what? With some of those things, we control. If you want to have a $10,000 mortgage or a $5,000 mortgage, you're going to have to make a certain amount of money in order to be able to live that lifestyle. You can opt for a house that's $500. You can opt for a house that's $1,000. If you make your lifestyle less expensive, then you might not be obligated to work in environments that you don't fit in. So we have the power of choice to either complain about our situation, and I'm not saying that none of it is right. No, it is dead wrong. But as we all know, these different things have been in place for years and years and years. And if your plight or your platform is to advocate for injustices and things of that nature, then by all means do that. But please know, you make that decision to go to that job every day that you hate, where they mistreat you, and you're experiencing racism, and you're underpaid. Your colleagues are making more than you. You make that decision. But if you make that decision because the money is more important than your mental wellness, then during your breaks, like for example, at the VA, we were given 2 15-minute breaks, and you're also given a lunch break. I tell people, like I had one client, I told her, hey, you need to take your 15-minute breaks. Go sit out in the car. Go listen to some music. Go write. Go do something that you want to do. Go walk around the building. Take your breaks. You are not obligated to sit at your desk to make sure everybody sees you. No. Walk outside. Go take a woosah moment. Go breathe. But just get out. Take your 2 15-minute breaks or whatever your company offers. Also, I just want to say with sick leave, know the policies, know the rules. So I'll give an example once again with the VA. We knew that if we called out 2 days, no one could ask us any questions. It could have been for my own mental wellness. It could have been for whatever, but they could not ask me, why am I calling out? I would just say, calling to request sick leave today, period. 2 days, no doctor's note, good. Now on the 3rd day, I need a doctor's note. So learn about your policies and make sure you stay within them. And yes, HR, they can definitely do more. They are also overworked, overstressed. And I can only imagine with all the staff being laid off now, they are really going through a lot. But learn about your benefits, really utilize those and utilize your EAP. So that's something you can do when it comes to your company and also in your other domains of wellness. How's your eating? How is your physical health? How is your environment? Do you have to deal with stress at work and deal with stress when you get home? Do you make a decision to have friends that are dead weight, that's sucking the life out of you? If you don't remember anything else that I say today, remember you control what you can and you make a decision for the betterment of you. It is not selfish to practice self-care and to prioritize yourself. Stop giving when you do not have anything to give. So if you have to go to a job that you hate every day to be able to provide a living for your family, that means outside of your job, you can't afford to have any other life stresses in your life. Like, you're gonna have to cut all other people out. If they're not adding value, or if they're not helping you pay that mortgage or your rent, they have to go. Since at this point, you might have to keep your job. But that's just my own personal thoughts. And it might sound a little harsh, but you can't be stressed outside of work and at work. You just can't do it. Or you're going to be that person that work your whole life, and when you're ready to retire, you die because you've been stressed.
Okay, harsh. I feel like I just received a spanking. Harsh, but realistic. But I do want to say that there are situations where women do not have control for whatever reason, whether it's emotional or how they relate to the world around them, how they grew up, the issues that they're dealing with. And I'm going to post, it keeps coming to my mind, Lequita, to post this heart health meditation. So I want us to post that heart health meditation to your page or one of our, I'll send it to Walker's Legacy as well. That will give women, a meditation that they can take, very brief, to just kind of reset at any time at their desk, in front of their computer, just push back and just do that every day for yourself. Enter every morning with a feeling of grace and gratitude. That was one of the things that was mentioned earlier. And I love the quote that you just gave. If anyone can post quotes or good takeaways or phrases that they hear throughout these conversations that we can all reshare, that would be awesome, because we need those sort of takeaways and reminders of, you know, how we should better improve ourselves and improve our wellness, and make sure that we're there to take care of ourselves first. Put the mask on yourself first, you know, before you help the next person. We're good on time. So I want to ask you one more question, and I'm glad you go back around to HR people. Yeah, HR people. So do you feel that, you know, do you feel that there, if there was a shift in HR policies and HR best practices, because the head of SHRM now is an African American male, and now's the time to call him. I need to call him, and just like you just did. But if there was some sort of discussion or conversation around how human resource professionals can best integrate wellness in the workplace, specifically for multicultural women, do you envision that in any sort of way? What would that look like for you?
For me, I mean, I don't know what's the practicality of it, but I think that people should be able to send in a survey that does a true temperature check that is completely anonymous. And what I mean by that is, I think that companies, at least quarterly, but this is my own bias and I'm not sure how to get this done, but I believe that companies need to take the time quarterly to send out a survey that asks very pertinent questions related to what's some of your life stressors in general that you're dealing with. You know, what is impacting your productivity at work? You know, is it management? What can we do to help you? Do we need to provide more on-site trainings? And literally ask all of those deep dive questions in an electronic survey that is completely anonymous, that only asks whether you're male or female, your race, and then all the other questions, but it needs to be completely anonymous. And then once HR actually attains that information, they can then use that to provide or contract with companies like Center for Confidence or TherapyTopia or other companies out here to come in and render those services to really help people from a holistic standpoint. So one, act like you care, do the survey. Two, implement a strategy and get it done.
Thank you so much, Lequita. I think we're down to our last minute, so I'll read some of the quotes that you all are posting. From Ayo, I hope I pronounced your first name correctly. We must take breath breaks to de-stress, get recentered, and just to be in the moment. And B is in quote, and breath breaks is in quotes. And then feel, felt, and found is what Monique posted. And, self-care isn't selfish. And she said, that's right. Monique, self-care isn't selfish. And someone posted, this may be their link, The Wounded Healer. And then I want to say for myself, it's just wake up every day with grace and gratitude. Just ask yourself every morning, what are the 5 things that you're grateful for? And you will feel immediately a shift in how you feel about the rest of the day. So I think we are done, right, Lequita? 12:50? I don't want to go over.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. V and Walker's Legacy, and definitely check out TherapyTopia.com. Go to the COVID-19 link, you know, share it. We are doing this campaign to help Americans that were laid off, and we need company sponsorships and support from philanthropists, because we've already started receiving emails and messages from people who do need the help. So we are seeking sponsorships. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And here's my closing. My special thanks to Lequita Brooks for joining us today. And you've just told us how they can stay in touch with you, your handles. So we're now going to take a 10-minute break with music from DJ C. Devon before we begin our next session on Raising Resilient Children with Shamika Argo. Thank you all so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Have a great day.